wewe uko na risasi yako ya mwisho, fiatua, na tukamwambia nalenga vizuri. Na mimi nikaenda huko tukasema NASA. Na yeye akafiatua. Risasi ikakwisha. Sasa sisi tunatazama, tunaona je, mzee wetu alikuwa amekubali kwamba atafiatua risasi, alafu apeane nafasi Kalonzo naye afiatue yake, Musalia afiatue yake, Weta afiatue yake. Sasa tunaona ndugu yetu ameenda kukopa bunduki ya mwingine, anataka kufiatua tena.
We have a very interesting conversation lined up tonight where we feature a one-on-one sit-down with that man, ANC party leader Musalia Mudavadi, against a backdrop of conflicting political events that includes a looming fallout in the NASA coalition. Honorable Musalia, thank you so much for staying with us. We did speak a bit earlier on, but we now want to switch gears a little bit. You obviously listened to yourself in that soundbite there. We've all witnessed an exchange of fire between former NASA principals, yourself, Honorable Raila Odinga, Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka. But I guess you can speak for yourself on this one. Help us understand what is going on.
Well, maybe I can just put it in a humorous way. You know, right now we are in the state of COVID. So I can very comfortably say that NASA maybe is on a political ventilator as we speak. That means that the health of NASA is not very good as we speak. NASA as a coalition is suffering from a breach of trust. The confidence amongst the founding party members of NASA is low at this point in time. And therefore going forward, one may want to anticipate that there shall be new political formations in the offing as we go forward. But right now, the actual status is that legally, NASA remains in place, but in terms of functionality, NASA has not been pulling as one.
Honorable Musalia, help us understand why now. It's not the first time we've had statements like NASA is dead. ODM Secretary General Sifuna, amongst many others, have said that we've seen the best years of NASA, so to speak. But why now? Why are we seeing this back and forth, these comments between the NASA leaders at a time like this?
Well, I've talked about the breach of trust. That's where I've pitched my argument. And you see, where does it come from? It comes from the fact that we entered into a coalition agreement. We all appended our signatures to that coalition agreement. We registered this coalition agreement with the Register of Political Parties. But in terms of honoring the contents of that agreement, we have not been able to achieve that. And that is why I say that
what are the contents? Help us understand. You know, you're speaking about a document Kenyans may not have seen before. Well, what were the contents of that document?
Actually, to be honest, I'll tell you one thing. We've made sure that the contents of that document are even made available to all the media houses. Believe you me, we have had copies released to all media houses. Now, the key factor around there is that we set out principles on what we should expect to do had we taken over the realm of government, which we did not. But we had also anticipated that if we do not take over government, we shall remain a united and effective opposition. All right? But we had a program on the economy of this country. We had a program on the issues of governance in this country in that document. But over and above that, we also agreed that the party that was going to produce the flag bearer in that coalition, and this was ODM, would not then field a presidential candidate in subsequent elections, general election. Other than that, there was also the issue that we also entered into an arrangement to share what you'd call the political parties fund, and it is put in that document. So these are very fundamental issues. So as we speak, we do not share the political parties funds. All right? So that is an issue that has not been resolved to this day.
Could the major bone of contention be about ODM potentially fielding a presidential candidate in the future? And one would then ask you, Honorable Musalia Mudavadi, are you waiting to be endorsed by NASA or by the parties that constitute NASA?
First of all, let's just put it this way. We are talking about NASA, isn't it? And let's just put it in the right context. Because an agreement is as good as the people that make it. An agreement is judged by the quality, the fidelity to the content of that agreement. So if we enter into agreement, let us live by our commitments. That is how we can become accountable as a people, as political parties. That is what it should be. So if we breach the contents of those agreements, then it shows that it was purely an arrangement for expediency. Now, let's talk about endorsements. My friend, let us not cheat ourselves. Politics is about endorsements. You will seek endorsement from a business community. You will seek endorsement from the civil society. You will seek endorsement from certain pressure groups, certain lobby groups. It happens all over the world. And the ultimate endorsement, the final endorsement, the one that is the final stamp of approval, is the endorsement from the voter. So we should not shy away about talking about endorsements. You earn it. You build a process. You persuade people with their ideas. And if they buy into it, they endorse you. And ultimately, the people have the final say through the vote.
Some would say, however, the problem with the endorsements that we see in this country is that it eventually leads to a very narrow pool of contestants, so to speak, or candidates at the very end, denying the voter a wide pool to choose from.
No. And
there are those who see that as working against democracy.
An endorsement does not mean that you are stopping other people from contesting for any position. Let us be realistic. For instance, if a political party endorses me, ANC has endorsed me, they have done it as a party. Other parties will endorse their candidates. And those candidates will go and seek endorsement from other critical constituencies in this country. So let's not beat about the bush on something like this. And let's even go further. Somebody says, did the president endorse you? The president did not endorse me. But, frankly speaking, I would be lying if our politician had said that his endorsement would be worth nothing. He's a critical player in this country, and so are others.
Are you actively seeking the president's endorsement tonight?
If I can persuade him, fine.
Is that the path you're on?
No, not necessarily so, but I'm saying if I can persuade him, fine. But it's his right. He can make that decision. But we should not shy away and pretend that endorsements do not matter. If you go back and you watch what we did when we were at NASA, I was the one who was speaking at Uhuru Park. And we clearly endorsed Raila as the candidate for NASA. It was an endorsement. And after that, the final endorsement would come through the vote of the Kenyan people.
Honorable Musalia, I hear you loud and clear, but what do you say to those who feel a perception that previously the kind of politics you've played is as one who is a fence sitter, waiting to be endorsed rather than going out to the voters to personally speak to them? How do you respond to those who are asking that question tonight?
They don't know me.
Tell us about yourself.
All right. I've been in politics for quite a long time. I've won elections and I've also lost elections. And I know what it takes. You campaign, you have to seek and move out. So those who want to perpetuate a certain narrative, that is their wish. But I've constantly said, I should not be seen or judged in the prism of other politicians. Our retired president, Mzee Mwai Kibaki, said, kila mtu ana style yake. I have my own style. I don't have to be abrasive. I don't have to be shouting at the rooftops and insulting people for people to know that Musalia is out seeking for votes. I prefer to focus on issue-based politics. Unfortunately, we have a very large constituency in our country that go for the intrigues rather than the content.
You've spoken about issue-based politics, Honorable Musalia. I want to refer you to a letter released to the press a couple of days ago by Kibisu Kabatesi, your spokesperson, in reference to a statement by Raila Odinga that he'll not endorse any of the NASA candidates because they failed to show up at his swearing-in, and he went on to address that. What I'm keen to get your views on is at the tail end of that letter, which I believe was written in your name. You referred to Honorable Raila Odinga as follows: he hates being reminded that he's a political con, but reminded he'll be until he forgoes deceit. Politics of deceit will not befit a Kenyan leader. Are you aware of the contents of that statement?
Yes, I'm
Those
aware.
are in your words?
I'm aware of that content.
Are you telling us tonight, Honorable Musalia Mudavadi, that you'd actually call Raila Odinga a political con?
I think it is important that we address issues as they are. The issue of the swearing in at Uhuru Park. What was it all about?
Tell us.
It's a rhetorical question that Kenyans need to reflect on. After the swearing in, what happened? Which government did we form? What is our status today? Who is the president of Kenya? It's Uhuru Kenyatta. So what was that process all about? These are the facts that we need to understand.
You stand by the statement, you stand by those words, political con. Those are very strong statements.
So the point I'm putting across is that let us come out and speak to the truth on a lot of issues. That even in the media, they call it a mock swearing in. Now you cannot therefore say that because there was a mock swearing in, that you want to hold it against us because we did not participate in a mock swearing in. But if indeed that was with the judge or the determinant of the leadership of this country, then what about Joho, who attended it? Will he be endorsed?
I want you to respond to a question by a viewer. We've actually put it up on the screen. Kiberenge Jr. asks, there have been contrasting versions of why Mudavadi and his two colleagues never made it to Uhuru Park. From the Nigerian number, to withdrawal of security, to not wanting to participate in an illegal administration of oath. Can Honorable Mudavadi settle this issue once and for all?
I have settled it. It was a process that was full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. Uhuru remains the president of Kenya.
What actually happened on that day? I think that is the mystery that still remains.
It's water under the bridge.
It's not, if this statement is anything to go by, Honorable Musalia.
It is water under the bridge. What happened, happened.
What happened?
There was a mock swearing-in ceremony. We did not participate, and it was illegal.
Are you saying that you intentionally stayed away? It was not about being blocked by security, as we've heard from Honorable Kalonzo. It was not about lack of communication from Honorable Raila.
Do you know, let me just put it this way. As a NASA team, we debated this thing at length. I have been a vice president. I have been a minister for finance in this country. Kalonzo has been a vice president, and Kalonzo has also been a minister for foreign affairs. Wetangula has been a minister for foreign affairs. Honorable Raila Odinga has been a prime minister. We debated this thing at length, and it was very clear that in this day and age, a mock ceremony like that will receive no recognition, whether here or internationally. It will be of no basis in law. In fact, it seems to perpetuate a process of impunity. We are seeking to be leaders of this country through the mandate of the people, through a constitutional process. We cannot therefore be tied to a process that completely breaches the Constitution. And I rest my case there.
You rest your case there. Before we move on, the discussion about the Nigerian number, fictional? Fact or fiction?
It is of no consequence. It's of no consequence.
You choose not to answer that question.
It is of no consequence. I think the substantive issue I have dealt with.
So do you then, like, when you call Honorable Raila Odinga and his style of politics as a political con, in your statement, one would then ask why?
I think what people need to know is that that process was a process which we need to put behind us, and we should never repeat that process.
Again.
As a nation.
So why are you seeking endorsement from a player you've dubbed as a political con?
Did I say I was seeking endorsement from him?
Well, what we heard there is that it's time for him to give Kalonzo a chance, a chance?
I was talking to the content of what was in the coalition agreement. I'm speaking to what was in the coalition agreement. I'm holding somebody to account in the context of the coalition agreement, which we all signed. But it is his constitutional right. It's also ODM's right. They can decide to stick to the coalition agreement, or they can decide to throw it outside the window.
Will you work with ODM or Raila Odinga ever again?
In politics, you say never. Say never. You can work together. But what we learn along the way is that anytime you move forward, you must become much wiser in any other formation or agreement that you enter into.
Okay. Speaking of agreements or formations that you enter into, we recently saw you in Machakos County, in the western parts of the country as well, with Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka, Moses Wetangula, and Gideon Moi. We've seen you quite a bit together, and there's talk of a coalition as well. Please, again, I'm giving you a chance on this program to clear the air on several issues. Let's get into that one now. What is that about?
It is a process. We are facing by-elections, aren't we? There's a by-election there, so we did not field a candidate as ANC. And we talked, and we said, let us give support to the candidate that the Wiper Democratic Party has nominated in Machakos. And this is being reciprocated in Kabuchai, where Ford Kenya lost the MP, and they have a candidate in the by-election. And in Matungu, ANC lost its MP, and we have a candidate. So it is a process. And this is how building confidence begins. This is how trust is built. You systematically work together, and God knows, as we move forward, we would be happy to work with other Kenyans going forward.
What's the end result of that particular process? I know you want to bring in other Kenyans, but I'm curious about your dalliance, so to speak, with Kalonzo Musyoka, Honorable Wetangula, and...
By the way, why do you call it a dalliance? Remember, we had already been working together in the NASA coalition, yeah? Although it is not as functional as it should be. Remember, we are there legally. We are still in the same, within the same coalition. As much as I've said, it's on a political ventilator.
We have definitely seen an increase in activities, and I want to understand the end game of this.
The whole thing is this: politics is dynamic, and as we move forward, Maura, I think we should expect new political formations and realignments as we get closer to 2022, and that you can take to the bank.
What could be the name of the political formation that you are currently moving around the country with?
Let us take one step at a time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are there any lessons learned, having been in previous political arrangements, that would advise how you would engage moving forward to avoid what we've seen every 5 years during our election cycle?
I think trust is so important. Then we may have to even look at some aspects under the Political Parties Act, so that we can give the registrar, of political parties, more ability or even greater legal muscle to enforce and ensure coalition agreements are being honored. Because we have to come to the understanding that in this country, coalitions are going to be here to stay. And it is therefore important that the Registrar of Political Parties strengthens, or has the law strengthened, not just for the regulation of political parties as individual parties, but also coalitions. This is how we build a good country. This is how we consolidate democracy.
Speaking of building a good country, consolidating democracy, they say also that the more the choices for the people, possibly the better decisions that they will make. Even as we focus on the presidential race that will be there next year, there's a new entrant from the Western region. He goes by the name of Dr. Mukisa Kitui. He announced that he'll be vying about a week or two ago. How will that affect or impact your candidature?
First of all, it is Dr. Kitui's constitutional right to declare an interest in whatever seat he chooses to do so. And if he has chosen to declare an interest in the presidency, then that is perfectly in order. He cannot be stopped. It's only the voter who will decide at the end of the day. Once they have assessed the manifestos of the various candidates, then they will do it. It does not affect my candidacy at all. It does not. And why do we make it look like it is different? I mean, Uhuru, in the last election, stood for the presidency. And at one time, there was Paul Mwite from the same region, there was Martha Karua from the same region, and there was Peter Kenneth from the same region. And they contested. And the voter made a decision.
It has a lot to do, Honorable Musalia, with the fact that you need a strong start at home, in your stronghold, in your backyard, whichever way you choose to look at it. And having an opponent there could actually weaken your start.
I think the reality of it is this. It is not going to be the first time that multiple candidates have emerged from one part of the country to seek the presidency. What is important at the end of the day is how one markets his agenda or her agenda and what the people will think about it. Competition is healthy.
Okay. Honorable Musalia, I'll ask you a couple of questions about the economy, but I actually want to bring up viewers' feedback on this because a lot of that has been coming in. This is what viewers are saying tonight. We have that first tweet, I believe. Let's put it up. Okay, this one is coming in from Thomas Kimutai. He's asking, ask Musalia Mudavadi what's his stand on the wage bill. While adding 180 nominated women MPs, 70 new MPs, will that not have a significant effect on the wage bill? It takes 20 million monthly to support one MP. Okay, I'm not sure where he gets those numbers from. What will be the remedy for this? Okay, let's take one or two more. This one coming in, Abdullahi Dero is asking, ask Musalia, how true is the speculation out there on the street that Musalia, Kalonzo and Gideon are teaming up against Raila? I think we have another one here. Kaka Bramzi, Musalia Mudavadi is our guru in economy. According to him, what should be the priority for the country between BBI and fighting COVID-19? Does the BBI have a formula we don't know that will help in faster paying of national debt? So we're getting to that economy discussion now, Honorable Musalia, and I do have a soundbite that I'll be playing shortly for you, but I want to give you a chance to respond to that question about the possibility, what the wage bill would look like post-BBI, and it's been repeated again by Kaka Bramzi.
Well, definitely the wage bill will rise. That's a fact. If we go through the BBI and there are certain adjustments, it's very possible, and it is true, that the wage bill will adjust upwards. But let me put it this way also. The challenge we have at the moment as a country is that there's also a lot of wastage. We are still losing a lot of money through pilferage, through corruption. And if we deal with these issues more effectively, the whole issue about how big the wage bill will be will now become a secondary issue. But right now, the reality is that we already have a huge wage bill. There's pressure on the taxpayer. There's pressure on the people of Kenya. And indeed, this is why perhaps even the IMF, as they talk, they're talking about possible restructuring and thinning out of the public service, so that aspects about the wage bill and so forth can also be moderated. So indeed, there's that challenge. But going forward, all I can tell the Kenyans is this. If we have a growing economy an economy that is working for all, we shall be, and then we tighten our belts to live within our means, we shall be able to handle Kenya's situation well.
I want to actually get specifics from you on that one, and I want to begin by playing this clip. This was an interview that you conducted, Honorable Musalia, or you were interviewed in December, and this is what you had to say about the state of the economy.
What has happened in the Jubilee debt portfolio is that for some of these infrastructure projects, they have taken money at a rate of 7%, repayable in 15 years. And it's in billions. So the bigger problem we have here, the more the taxation will become, the more painful and punitive it will become. So in simple language, as Fuliza is dealing with the ordinary citizen, the government is also having its mega Fuliza with the big creditors calling on them, calling on the treasury to say, this installment is due, this installment is due.
Honorable Musalia, no doubt you're passionate about the economy. In December, you gave that warning that there's a mega Fuliza, so to speak. We're now looking at a situation, according to the latest reports, that Kenya could start paying up to 1 trillion for loans in the financial year starting July. Should you become president, how would you steer what some would call an over-leveraged economy that is paying off more debt than it actually has money for to do other expenditure with?
First of all, let me just let Kenyans know that I started raising this issue way back in 2015, telling them that the rate at which we are seeing borrowing on part of the government is going to haunt us in a very short while. I did raise these issues. So it is true. And for everybody to be on the same page, when you have infrastructure projects, mega infrastructure projects, it is always good to take concessionary loans, repayable over a longer period of time. Because the return on some of these infrastructure projects may not be seen in the short time that we are seeing. So, for instance, what would be a concessionary loan be? A concessionary loan would be something like borrowing at 1% or even less than 1% interest rate, repayable over a 30-year period. These are concessionary loans. But some of the loans that are now hitting us, as much as they have gone into infrastructure, they are loans that are supposed to be repaid over a 15-year period at an interest rate of perhaps 7%. That is what becomes painful.
Which is why I want to hear from you.
So, what did I tell them to do? I told them from the very beginning, and I'm happy that the Treasury has started doing this, that you must find a way of renegotiating some of these loans, have some of them rescheduled, even have an arrangement where you can talk to some people so that you refinance with longer term. You retire the expensive debt and have it refinanced with long term.
And yet that may not be enough. It was reported we recently went for another Eurobond.
Yes, we have recently gone that. You see, it can become dangerous because right now, if anything is to go by, our public debt is at about 65% of our GDP. That is high for an economy like ours.
Which is why I want to know from you specifics. What would you do different? And let me give you scenarios.
So one of the things I would tell you is that I would go to an aggressive process of renegotiating and rescheduling our public debt. That is absolutely essential. So that you can have sufficient resources in the country released to spark growth in our economy.
That we've already seen intentions of by Treasury. Would you also, for example, cut government spending, adopt public expenditure reviews? Is that something you'd actually look to do?
Of course, you have to realign, you have to go through a process of fiscal consolidation, realignment of public expenditure, so that some areas, for instance, if there are programs that have never taken off, the feasibility studies have not been done or they're at a feasibility study level, suspend some of them. Complete the ones that are already in motion so that you don't have white elephants all over the place. But then don't get into engagements that are not properly budgeted for. This is going to be a very painful process for the Kenyan people. I can tell you that. It's not an issue that you will get out of quickly. And this is why I've been stating time and again that Kenyans must make a very deliberate choice to ensure that the government they put in 2022 will be a government that will be focused on solid economic management so that we can start creating jobs. We have lost 2 million jobs. COVID or no COVID, the reality is that 2 million Kenyans have had to walk away from where they were earning. Now, that means that whatever we do going forward, let us have a government, let us have a parliament, let us have a public service or civil service that will be focused on this.
Honorable Musalia, what some Kenyans may be struggling to understand tonight is this, and this has come from at least more than one presidential candidate. On one hand, someone like you supports the BBI, and yet we know the BBI will come with a wage bill requirement post-referendum that the next government will need to shoulder. At the same time, the next government, you're telling us, will need to cut back dramatically. Do you see a contradiction?
You see, cutting back...
That you're telling them, support this document, yes, there will be a wage bill increase, but at the same time, as soon as we're done with the referendum in 2022, we have to cut back dramatically. Help Kenyans understand how to navigate this.
You know, one of the things that I said, and I said that it is important, in fact, in our earlier conversation, I said I'm happy that this process is now moving forward because we seem to have been possessed as a people around the BBI issue. So to me, it may be painful in the short term, but let us get over it. Let it not be an agenda for 2022. Let us start working and helping Kenyans to understand that the leaders we want at MCA level, at parliamentary level, at presidential level, must be leaders who will be committing to revival of the economy. I'm not saying good governance and other issues will not matter, they will matter. Revival of the economy means taking a tougher stand on corruption so that there's less wastage, there's less theft. These are issues that we must have a judiciary that will function appropriately to anchor the growth of the economy. We must have a civil service that will have its morale boosted. Because right now the morale of the civil service is low.
Do you raise these concerns when you meet President Uhuru Kenyatta? Unlike many Kenyans, you probably can reach out to him.
Of course.
Do you raise those concerns?
When we have an opportunity, we talk about matters of the economy. We share something in common. He was Minister for Finance at one time. I was Minister for Finance. And whenever we have had an opportunity to discuss matters of the economy, we talk about these things candidly.
Honorable Musalia, I have lots of questions that have come in that I'm going to give you a chance to respond to. But let's do this. Let's take a quick break. We'll look at those questions and get some further thoughts from Honorable Musalia Mudavadi on the other side of this break. ANC party leader, we're talking about NASA, we're talking about the political state of the country, but also the economy as well. He's warning that it's going to be tough, and I'm asking him what's he going to do about it. We get more into that on the other side of the break. You're watching Newsnight. Stay with us. We'll be right back.